welcome everyone that's joining in either now or on the replay. These chats are part of a larger sort of project to chat with experts outside the hospitality industry to like tease out ideas or tips that we can use within the industry to develop a roadmap towards healthier and happier lives. This evening, we welcome Aimee Hartley. Aimee is the founder of The Breathing Room, author of Breathe Well, a yoga teacher, and a transformational breath coach. So thank you for being here tonight, Aimee.
Thank you. That list sounds exhausting. It's like...
Might have missed off, so feel free.
Yeah, no. Yeah, a mother as well. So yeah, I'm just like, oh yeah, I forgot I'd done that. Yeah. So yeah.
So this is our third chat. I think third out of the last four about breathwork. Something I knew very little about before I started these conversations. When I spoke with Arthur and Will, they both sort of had foundations in the Wim Hof method. But I'm quite excited to have a chat with you tonight, exploring a little bit of a different approach. But the best place I guess that we could start is just a bit of your story, your background, and how you ended up doing what you are today.
Yeah, so I guess how I got into breathwork primarily was through a yoga teacher training course that I went on 10-15 years ago now. And from that, I went and studied in Australia and put myself on a full-time course. It's the only course that I found that was very, very, comprehensive, I guess. And it was full-time, so I kind of escaped my hedonistic London days and plonked myself in Sydney, Australia, where I knew no one apart from my cousin and a few family members. And really, really kind of threw myself into the yoga. I'd done 2 years before, but a yoga training course out there. And it's amazing. But while I was there, I was also doing lots of other yoga classes and breathwork classes. Well, Kundalini yoga anyway, which its central theme is all about the breath. Then I was invited on an Art of Living course, which is all about the breath as well. So there was always something for me about the breath work. There's something that just kept coming up about the breath that I was really fascinated by. Then I came back to London, and there was this great guy called Alan Dolan, and he was teaching transformational breath classes in the yoga studio that I was then teaching in. And everyone was coming out of his classes going, that's amazing, this is incredible, never felt like this before. And I was just like, what is this? I was intrigued that I'd studied yoga by then for 3 or 4 years, and then was teaching for a year or so, and had never come across transformational breathwork. And I just thought, this is fascinating. So I asked him all about it, and I was just like, can I have a one-to-one? So I had a one-to-one session with him. He looked at my breath pattern, which is what transformational breath is, sort of its unique USP, if you like. It looks at individual breath patterns. So we all breathe in a completely different way, and which I found fascinating. And he looked at my breath pattern. He went, "You're not breathing properly." And my sort of yogic trained mind was just like, well, I must be, because I've done 2 years in England, yoga teacher training, and then I've done a whole year in Australia. So I've kind of like 700 hours yoga teacher, professional yoga teacher. How can this be? And he said, you've got tension around the upper chest. You're not breathing into your diaphragm fully. You're breathing into it a little bit, but you're not optimizing your breath. So 90 minutes of him, first of all, he looked at my breath pattern and told me that I was a rubbish breather, then told me how to breathe, and really used all the elements of transformational breath, which is acupressure, to release tension under the diaphragm. It's a big, big muscle, so it kind of released any tension that was there, released tension around the secondary muscles as well, secondary respiratory muscles. There was toning involved as well, so sort of vocal sound, a little bit of movement. There was lots going on in this one session. And I just felt like amazing. And I had experiences that I hadn't had in any other breath work before. And the effects lasted about 48 hours. Like, I was walking around the next day, I had loads of energy. I was so present. And I was just like, wow, what is this? And I just was like, no one had heard about it then. This was sort of 12 years ago now, I believe. So anyway, I jumped on the training course, and again, that was another 2 years of quite dedicated work and practice and facilitation, And yeah, then I just knew that this is what I wanted to teach, because in my yoga classes, I was still teaching yoga classes while I was training as a transformational breath facilitator. And in my yoga classes, all I could see were hundreds of people not breathing properly. Like, they were all in fancy yoga poses. They were, you know, standing on their heads or whatever, but no one had a full belly breath. No one was breathing well. So yeah, I went on a bit of a mission, really, I just felt like, as a yoga teacher, I was a bit like a stretching teacher or something, and I wasn't really doing anything to anyone. I was just kind of, I wasn't really helping anyone. So I just thought, if I teach everyone to breathe first, and then I can go back to my yoga teaching. And I never really went back to teaching yoga, in just yoga teaching. I now teach breathwork and yoga together. And yeah, so yeah, that was quite a long-winded answer to your question, but yeah, that was I'm still discovering so much about it. It's kind of endless. And I think that's what also makes it really appealing, is that it's kind of endless, you know, it's endless learning and endless experiences. So yeah, it's great.
Cool. I like that. It's been just like a natural progression through a journey that's just constantly leading you sort of somewhere.
Yeah, definitely. And now I've got breathwork into, well, I'm working on a breath program for schools as well. So this is where I'm at now. So yeah, and in 10 years time, maybe I'll be somewhere else. I don't know. We'll see.
It's exciting though.
Yeah, really exciting. Yeah, and yeah, energizing, and everything that breath can bring.
So I know we are here to talk a little bit more about breathwork, but I wouldn't mind jumping back a little bit to the yoga side of things, if we could.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Something I've dabbled with very, very briefly, especially at the start of lockdown. Something I've noticed in my very limited sort of time doing it, it encompasses things like movement and fitness, but with like breathing and meditation, which I found quite fascinating and a little bit surprising that like I'm into breathing and I'm into meditation. Why I haven't spent more time doing things like yoga. So what would you say to someone that is kind of interested in getting involved in that, or beginning yoga routine?
Beginning a yoga routine? Well, I would actually say to start with the breath. Maybe being a bit biased here, but I would, once you've opened up your respiratory system, so we're all breathing, but we're all breathing in a completely different way. And but once we've opened up our respiratory system, or once we're breathing to our optimum, then our yoga practice is going to be a lot more rewarding. So you can start a yoga practice and be an upper chest breather, whereby when you breathe in, you're using these secondary muscles to breathe. So your shoulders may rise and the upper chest might rise, but the diaphragm is not being utilized, or is not moving as well as it should. And so certain yoga poses might feel quite tricky. I know a lot of people when they're in sort of Virabhadrasana 1, some people find this quite stressful, like they get sort of anxious and they get short of breath in this pose, or sort of tree pose, any pose with the arms above the head. So when we bring our arms above the head, we're lifting obviously the secondary respiratory muscles, the accessory muscles upwards, and therefore we bring the breath upwards as well. And if we're an upper chest breather already, then this is going to just raise the breath a little bit higher, and this is going to be naturally stressful on the respiratory system and then stressful on every other system of the body. But if we're breathing fully into the diaphragm, this pose, this posture, this way of moving the skeleton is going to just be really energizing and really, really sort of full of life, and give you what that pose was originally built for. And I think what's happening a lot these days is that, I especially noticed it in the last 12 years of attending classes anyway, is that everything's speeded up. So we're doing these, you know, fast vinyasas. There's hardly room for the breath. If you find it
does have sort of its roots in like meditative and breathing practice, doesn't it? But now it's become sort of like a fitness thing.
It's a show thing. It's like there's showgirl, where you're going to have to, especially with Instagram, it's just like these people in amazing shapes and amazing postures. But I often think there's a few amazing yoga teachers out there that do breathe well and are incredible. And they're the ones to follow, and they're the ones to find. But there's a lot of, you know, it's sort of, it can look attractive, but whether they're breathing well in that pose and feeling good is a whole different story. So yeah, it's become a little bit it's become fashionable, but breathwork's heading that way too. So this is, you know, this is where you've got to be quite careful, because, you know, you don't just want to sort of jump on the yoga wagon and dabble and jump on the breathwork and dabble. It will all have benefits for you, but you have to do it well, and you have to be taught well anyway. That's the main thing. Or find a teacher that you resonate with and that you know that you're going to learn from, rather than skipping from one teacher to the next. And yeah.
If anyone is already in a bit of a yoga routine and they are probably or potentially not breathing properly, is there any sort of like instant tips that they could do within poses? Or
well, if you're not, so a very easy way to find out if you're not breathing well is just to place one hand on your upper chest and the other hand on the lower belly, and take a few breaths here. So you can take the breaths, just notice where you're breathing. So you'll either be a nose breather, so you'll either be breathing in through the nose, out through the nose. Some people are mouth breathers, which isn't helpful and not recommended in everyday life. So check that, and maybe check in throughout the day as well. You might notice that you're breathing in through the mouth quite a little bit. And if you are, definitely close the mouth, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Obviously, there are pranayamas, there are breath works that are in through the mouth, out through the mouth. But this is for corrective breath, this is to correct your breathing pattern anyway. So the first point I would go to is awareness and discovery. So find out what kind of breather you are, and we all breathe in a unique way. So this is just like, this is amazing for anyone studying breath. It's just like, well, we all, you know, we're all built differently and we all breathe a different way, but we can all breathe certainly better. Yeah. So just check, go in for a bit of sort of deep breath awareness first. If the hand on the belly is moving more on the inhalation, this means you've got an established belly breath. So when you breathe in, the belly should be rising fully, and this is a good sign. But sometimes, if we're a belly breather, sometimes there can be a lot of tension in the intercostal muscles, the little muscles in between the ribs, and the chest can be quite static. So we need to do chest opening poses, and sort of any poses that are going to help us with opening up the upper respiratory system, which can take time and can take patience as well. I'm a big fan of yin yoga, which is the more static poses, and this really can help the breath open, because you're really working into the kind of connective tissue, the fascia, in these slower poses. So definitely yin yoga. But if you're the other way around, whereby when you breathe in, the upper chest is rising and the shoulders are going, I'm obviously exaggerating, although there are some breathers out there breathing this way, and the back muscles are doing all the work. Again, yin yoga is great for this, but more grounding poses. So like child's pose is brilliant to bring yourself into a diaphragmatic breath. Strong grounded poses, so Virabhadrasana 1 and 2. Chair pose can be quite good as well, just for strengthening the lower body. So we're just really taking our focus from the upper chest to the lower body. That's a couple. I mean, I could go on, but that's hopefully good for starters.
Cool. Okay. So what is transformational breath? I've done a little bit of research on it, but I've read that it encompasses things like breath work, obviously, but then also movement, vocal techniques or toning, and then also positive affirmations. We could sort of do a broad sort of explanation, and we can maybe touch on those other points later on, if that works.
Yeah. So transformational breathing is unique in the fact that we do look at people as individuals. So we do look at the individual breath pattern of everyone and work from that space. So if you're a lower belly breather, we work on opening up the upper chest a little bit more. But we primarily focus on the diaphragmatic breath, because in my experience, no one is breathing fully enough. And so we'll always focus on a healthy breath first. So diaphragmatic breath, deep belly breath first. And then it's the conscious connected breath that we go into. So this is an open mouth breath, but it's only used for the time that we're practicing. So it's much like much like when we exercise or we swim, we have to open our mouths. And this just helps again access the diaphragmatic breath. And it's a combination therapy as well. And I believe it's the only breath work that is a combination therapy, as in the fact that we use breath work, as you say, acupressure, toning, movement, and the affirmations. So each of these healing modalities, each of these modalities are healing in their own right. So if we just breathe, that's going to give the physical systems and emotional systems and mental systems a bit of a boost, and that's healing its own right. Acupressure too is going to release the tension from the body, much like a massage. It's just going to help, get all those knocks out and allow the blood flow, allow the oxygen to flow to the muscles a bit more. Movement, any movement is going to be great for the body. We're so static these days, we need to move, and it can be, when you go on the trainings, there's lots of sort of dancing going on, and proper intuitive movement. In one-to-one sessions, it's a little bit more less sort of, I don't know, intense. It's just kind of a little bit of shaking of the arms, shaking of the legs, and this is just kind of just getting the body moving. It's so good to move. We're born to move. We don't do it enough. So there's movement. There's sound as well. So we use a lot of R sounds, oo sounds, loads of tension. We get loads of tension around the throat and the jaw. When we kind of go into fight or flight mode, or when we want to say something, want to express ourselves, and we don't feel safe to, what happens a lot is we hold our breath, and loads of tension gets stuck around these muscles here. So by ahhing and oohing and almost singing, we can release this tension here around the vocal cords. Helps release tension in the jaw as well. It's one of the biggest, strongest muscles we have. And also, if we're ahhing, we are extending the exhalation. So we are really, really activating the parasympathetic nervous system, which I can go into later. And the next breath is always sort of bigger and better after a long ah. So that's why that's used. And then the affirmations, or as you say, positive affirmations, it works on, there's a lot of negative chit chat that we can have going around our heads. I'm not good enough, I'm not doing enough, blah, 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 blah. And it's a bit like a stuck record. These same things, the same sort of script can come up a lot on a daily basis, and it can just get a little bit boring. I call it like mental litter. And what we do is when we facilitate, we'll sort of throw in a few positive affirmations. So it's, safe to move forward, I am enough, all these positive things that maybe we don't even tell ourselves. And this is sort of talking to the subconscious mind over, the more conscious, bossy mind. So each of those, very, very healing in themselves, rolled into one, can make quite a powerful experience for most people. And I think this is where it differs from, well, every breathwork out there is brilliant in its own right, but I think transformational breath is a little bit more precise in the fact that we work with the individual breath pattern rather than just giving you sort of a one size fits all, this breathwork will work for everyone. It's just like, well, this will work for you, but we work from that individual space rather than the macro.
Interesting. That's really interesting. Like I imagine other breathwork techniques do similar, but like I know like things like the Wim Hof method and stuff, they do hold like the bigger classes and have 20 people there. Not that I'm saying they don't look at this as well, because I actually don't know. But that's really interesting that it's a very like personal one-on-one breathwork technique.
Yeah, no, I mean that we do workshops as well, but it will be facilitated. So 20 people, not this happens anymore, but it will be facilitated by maybe 5 or 6 facilitators. But we'll always make it paramount that that's the space we're working from. So we're always working from this healthy breath space rather than just saying inhale, exhale, hold, or whatever, inhale, exhale, hold. That I believe that not very many other breathworks really look at this unique breath pattern that we all have, and encourage a healthy breath over a sort of, a menu of breathworks that you can choose from.
So obviously there's many benefits from doing any, like whether you choose transformational or Wim Hof or any other thing out there. But how would someone go about exploring or finding what might work best for them? Would it just be
sorry?
Would it be a guess and check kind of thing, or something a bit better for some people and something a bit better for others, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a personal experience that personally I love all breathworks. I'm up for, I will try all of them, and I'm obviously a bit of a fan. So But I think finding a teacher that you really resonate with, I think sometimes you learn more from that one person than going to see all the sort of top 100 gurus around the world or whatever. I just think that resonance with someone can, yeah, you'll just learn more from that one person. And also do try all of them. There's so many little snippets online now. I know Wim's got his thing on YouTube. I believe there's I don't know if there's rebirthing, but there's a lot of information out there. Some of it's, you know, professional and brilliant. Others maybe not so. And it's tricky these days because there's not so much. I think the yoga studios are just opening next week, maybe. But there's limited places where you can go and experience various breathworks. I'm sure that will get back to normal sooner or later. But just keep trying. Lots of them. I mean, I wouldn't like to say, oh, this is definitely the one for you and this is definitely going to work, because even with transformational breath, some people come along and they just don't get it, but then we'll go to a yoga class and find say alternate nostril breathing life-changing, because if you practice that 10-20 minutes a day, the benefits of that is just immense. So it's just finding really what suits you, what suits your schedule as well. Yeah, I like to keep the doors wide open for everyone. So do your research as well. It depends what you're looking for. If you're looking for, you know, stress, anxiety, breathworks for stress and anxiety, maybe go down the yoga route, go down the pranayama route, and then if you want the deeper sort of experiences, go down the sort of more conscious, connected breathing. But then again, yeah, it's such an individual experience that I wouldn't like to say one is better than the other.
Yeah. Like
I can see some little questions come up, and I'm so short-sighted I can't see what they are. So can you see them?
Alexis just asked. Said that she loves the phrase.
Mentalist. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I didn't know if it's a question, but yeah. Okay. Cool.
Hopefully we do get some soon. We keep popping up and down in people watching, so hopefully.
Oh, I don't mind. I like a less audience, to be honest.
So on your website, you touch on like benefits for like emotional and mental health. What would they be, and how do we go about sort of like finding these?
Do you mean for particular breath exercises or to do with transformational breathing?
Both.
Both. Okay.
I think might have been referring to the transformational breathing, but
yeah, it probably would. And how breathwork can help with this? Yeah. Okay.
So the main thing that what I'm trying to sort of unpack with these chats, there is that mental health sort of
definitely
ground. But
well, on a everyday level, breathwork can certainly help us be in the present moment a lot more. I think a lot of us these days, are up in this headspace a lot, and I think technology also serves as a mass distraction, and our concentration levels perhaps aren't what they were 20, 30 years ago. And this, as far as the brain is concerned, like every little bit of communication that happens in the brain is transmitted by these little neurotransmitters. And then stress in the body. So when we feel stress, the stress response is to release cortisol and adrenaline in the body. And what this can do is sort of snip the link between the neurotransmitters, and then the messages between the brain basically they don't get through. So this can build up confusion. This can build up sort of lack of concentration. So what we want to do on a very, very sort of basic chemical level is to one minute.
Are you coming down?
Sorry about that.
No problem
A live bath time going on. So 1 minute. I think he's okay. Sorry, no, it's okay. 1 minute. Daddy is in the house. He is there. I think she'll be fine. I'll just give that 1 minute. She's okay. So basically what can happen is, there's a disconnection between these messages in the brain, and therefore what we really want to concentrate on is building up resources for bringing our stress levels down. And breath work is brilliant for that. So a diaphragmatic breath on a physiological level, the diaphragm will help ourselves feel more present and relaxed. So it basically releases serotonin. It also works through the vagus nerve. So there's the vagus nerve that runs through the diaphragm. And the vagus nerve is like the feel-good nerve. It's the longest nerve in the body. And it sends us, so whenever we feel joyful and happy and up, this is the vagus nerve in action. It's kind of like the joy nerve, and it's got a direct connection and a direct relationship with the diaphragm. So as we're doing, if we're diaphragmatically breathing, we are massaging the vagus nerve, and so this can be really, really beneficial for sending good messages to the brain, like I'm feeling safe, everything's going to be okay. Everything's feeling good today, you know, this is the right decisions, I'm thinking clearly. So simply by breathing deeply and breathing well, we can help the more positive side of the brain. And also with this, just naturally with the stress response as well, we can go sort of from this fight or flight mode, so this very, very sort of stress mode, to this very, which is the sympathetic nervous system, to a very, very calm state, triggering the parasympathetic nervous system, just in a few deep diaphragmatic breaths. So it can really help with our focus, concentration. On the deeper side of things, with depression, we can certainly work with bringing the energy upwards as well, with more active breath works and with more deeper work. Sometimes we're holding on to things from 5, 10, 15, 20, 40 years ago that we wouldn't necessarily know that we're holding on to. So the body holds everything. I'm sure you've heard of the book, The Body Holds the Score. So the body's sort of a library, if you like, of every single moment that's happened to us. And if we haven't processed that moment or haven't been in that moment, what normally happens is something big happens to us on a traumatic level. What we will go into this fight, flight, or freeze mode. So all the muscles of the body contract. This means the respiratory muscles contract, and we go into sort of breath hold mode. And the emotion that we're feeling at that time cannot be felt, and also the breath can't move. So you've got these kind of two natural processes happening. You've got a feeling riding through us, and we've got the breath trying to enter the body. And what happens is we get this sort of like emotional locks in the body, and we can't breathe well in that moment. And then what happens is this tension, this emotional tension, gets stored in the body. So through deep diaphragmatic breath work as well, conscious connected breath work, we can help release this trauma and older, I guess, stuck emotion in the body that sometimes we don't necessarily know that we're holding on to at all.
So when I was chatting with Arthur and Will, going to like a practical in-work hospitality use, but I guess it could be used in almost any workplace. They spoke about like a single breath, like as an extension of I guess a breath practice or a meditation practice, just being mindful of a single breath that you can use in a stressful situation to like bring it back and reduce that stress. Do you have any tips for reducing like a instantaneous sort of stressful situation in a positive way?
Yes. So there's a breath work in the book called the acupressure breath. So basically we've got a point in the middle of the palm which can help stimulate the diaphragmatic breath. And we can press here, and we can take some sort of 5 to 10 deep diaphragmatic breaths into the center of the, whilst focusing on the center of the palm.
Yeah.
And if we do this, we can just help lower our blood pressure. Just bring ourselves into a little bit more of a calm state of mind, which I might be doing shortly because I can still hear my daughter. Do you mind if I'm just going to nip off and calm her and then come back? Okay, we've had daddy daycare fail going on. So while I'm there, try and take some deep breaths for me. 1 minute.
I will. So I think where we sort of left off was chatting about conscious connected breathing and active breathwork. Could you just explain these terms for me?
Yeah, so, well, conscious connected breathing is, conscious just means bringing our awareness to. So we breathe around 18,000 times a day. Many of those we are not aware of. So we just have, we're just kind of breathing day and night, and we don't really ever notice that we're breathing. And bringing our awareness to that is conscious breathing. So it just means really, really focusing on each and every breath. The connected side of it just means that we delete the pauses between inhales and exhales. Often in the day, we'll hold our breath, especially when we're engaged in technology or typing emails, or just generally going about our day. Sometimes we can find that we're holding the breath a lot. So the connected part of the breath, it just means that we become aware of these pauses and try and just smooth these glitches, if you like, out. If you look at, say, a baby or a toddler breathing, there is always sort of this lovely flow to the breath, much like a ocean wave, if you like. So it just ebbs and flows effortlessly. And that's what we're bringing our breath back to. Sort of this very, very natural state, if you like, of breath pattern. And then the active, so when we activate our breath, we're really charging up the diaphragm. And this isn't so natural, but it will definitely help us kickstart a healthy breath pattern, and help us use the diaphragm. Our diaphragm should be the main respiratory muscle, but over time we've kind of forgotten how to breathe, and the diaphragm takes a bit of a holiday. We tend to use the shoulder muscles, the intercostal muscles more to breathe, and it's almost like a muscle memory exercise. We're reminding the diaphragm to breathe and to do its job well. So this is what it means when it's a conscious connected breath, and the active breath is making it's alive, I guess, and just kind of reminding the diaphragm that this is its main job.
Yeah.
And it's different to, say, yoga breathing, which is more breath control, and yogic pranayama is we're controlling the breath, and whereas the active breath is more about letting go of tension that we hold within the respiratory system. And once we release that tension, and we hold a lot of tension in the jaw, neck muscles, even the throat, all the way down to the shoulders, rib cage, diaphragm, pelvic muscles, all of these muscles that are involved in breathing can hold on to tension. So a conscious connected breath that's also active can help release this tension. Then we have a fuller breath, and then we can enjoy the more yoga pranayamas. We can as much benefit from breathing as possible, but we can't really do that until we've got full optimum breath. If you are practicing yoga at the moment, but you've got tension in the upper chest, you're only going to sort of reap half of those rewards, as it were. But if you've got full diaphragmatic breath, you're breathing to your optimum, then you can really, really gain all the other benefits that a breathwork practice can bring.
Would this be more sort of practical for things like meditation, rather than sort of like forcing it like with other breathwork techniques? It's more sort of like conscious and just being aware and letting it all happen naturally.
Yeah, I mean, some people use conscious connected breathing as their meditation. People have been meditating for years, and they learn transformational breathing or other breath works, and they find that this was certainly true for me. I always found meditation quite difficult, because if you focus on, I think meditation along with yoga, they've lost the roots of really, really what it's all about. And meditation should just be really bring your awareness to the breath out of the mind into the body, and that gateway is through the breath. But I found certain meditations, you're just concentrating on how busy your mind is, and that can be really distracting, because the mind is obviously full of thousands of thoughts. But concentrating on the breath, you have sort of this focus, this focal point for the mind. So if you bring all your awareness to the breath can only ever live in the present moment. So if you bring all your focus, all your mind awareness to the breath, then you will only ever be in the present moment. So that is meditation. One level of meditation anyway.
We touched briefly in part one of our chat about the inhalations, sort of touching on the sympathetic nervous system, and the exhalations on the parasympathetic. I found this quite interesting, and something I've somehow missed in my couple of other breathwork chat. It got me thinking, this morning, like when we are in stressful situations, like we'll often be told like take a breath, like a big old breath. But should this breath that we take in these situations, should it be more focused on the exhalation, if that's activating the parasympathetic?
I think again, it's kind of gets slightly lost in translation, but I think the take a breath phrase, and sort of, it's kind of a phrase that's been passed down from generation to generation, was first perhaps verbalized when we were all breathing well. So taking a deep breath these days in the modern day world can be, for some people, quite stressful. Like sometimes people find just focusing on their breath really, really anxiety inducing, because those people normally are upper chest breathers and have this kind of very, very shallow breath. So if you're focusing on a very shallow breath, that is going to cause you sort of anxiety, because you're bringing your awareness to that actually you're breathing in quite a short, shallow, anxious way.
Yeah.
So by taking a breath, I think that what the original meaning of that was, take a deep breath, and that means a deep, full breath. And if you're taking a deep, full breath, which means activating the diaphragm or using the diaphragm to its optimum, this should bring feelings of calm, because I think we talked about earlier how a diaphragmatic breath stimulates the vagus nerve, and this brings us feelings of calm. So, but also, I like that point that maybe we should, in this modern day, take a big exhalation, because if you're or not a big exhalation, a longer exhalation. So if you're elongating your exhalation, you will trigger the parasympathetic nervous system. So a long exhalation will definitely help you feel calmer, rather than sort of taking a deep, shallow breath, as it were.
Yeah.
So maybe that phrase needs to be born.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. Like when I would have done that in a stressful situation, it just would have been like a very like intense inhalation, and then I would have just like left it there. Like I wouldn't have focused on anything after like the big breathe in, and then would have just moved on. And I guess that's probably not doing what I intended it doing at all.
Yeah, if you're breathing in for say 2 counts or 3 counts or 4 counts, and if you double the exhalation, you will trigger the parasympathetic nervous state. So just breathe out for twice as long as you breathe in.
Yeah.
And if you can use the diaphragm whilst doing that, then you'll be in a more of a relaxed state.
Yeah, good. It'll be something good for people just in their work life, just focusing on that. But we touched on toning in chat number 1. We jumped in and we chatted a little bit about the cold exposure and similarities in the vagus nerve. But I think maybe we should potentially jump back a little bit, and if you'd be able to just explain exactly what it is and how it fits into transformational breathwork.
Yeah, well, it's in basic terms, it's just vocal sound, and we hold a lot of tension in the throat, which people don't, and I certainly didn't realize this when I first started transformational breathing, but all parts of the respiratory system carry some form of tension, and the esophagus, windpipe, is part of that. And we have basically a lot of tension around this part of the body, and by making sound, much like singing or just making that long R-ing sound, we're creating vibration around the throat here, and this can just help release tension in the throat. And also by R-ing and making sound, we're extending and softening that exhalation. So this again will trigger the parasympathetic nervous system to balance this parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system out. So that's why it's used. It's used to balance the nervous system and release tension around the vocal cords and around the throat area.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So the vagus nerve, it's quite an interesting thing. It's affected by like so many different things, including nutrition, by the look of it. Like the parasympathetic nervous system, the vagus nerve, they're very connected to acetylcholine, which is a neurotransmitter.
Okay.
Is there any sort of like chats about nutrition or anything connected with transformational breathwork, or?
Well, maybe not nutrition per se, but definitely digestion. So what I have found with a lot of people that are say upper chest breathers or shallow breathers, they have a multitude of digestive issues like IBS, just not being able to digest food very well.
Yeah.
And this can and they've gone to nutritionists and they've had the all clear, or they're eating correctly, but they're not breathing correctly. So if you imagine the diaphragm is like a big sheet muscle in between the lungs here and the belly, the digestive organs here.
Yeah.
If we're not breathing fully, then these digestive organs won't be getting this massage. And we breathe 18,000 times a day. So the digestive organs have got 17,000 opportunities to be massaged fully. And this obviously is just nourishing the digestive system.
Yeah.
And if the breath is quite static and quite shallow, then these digestive organs are just going to get a little bit neglected and not be functioning again to their optimum. So 100% diaphragmatic breathing and a full breath can help all other systems of the body. There's like 12 different physical systems of the body. If we're breathing well, we're sort of orchestrating opportunities for all of those other physical systems to work to their optimum. And it's my belief that it starts with the breath, and that is the kind of driving force behind every other system of the body. And breath is life. Without it, we wouldn't be chatting, we wouldn't be here. And the quality and the depth that we breathe brings that quality and depth to all of other systems, emotional well-being, physical well-being, everything really. So yeah. And the absorption of food and the nutrients from food that we relies on oxygen. So the deeper we breathe and the better quality oxygen we get, each cell is going to be nourished more. So definitely. But I'm not a nutritionist, so it's only from experience really with seeing people with shallow breath patterns and them saying that their digestion has improved, 100-fold since activating this diaphragmatic breath. So yeah, if you want, yeah.
It's quite interesting because it's all sort of connected, I guess. Like if we're talking like breath work as a relief for things like stress, like stress and being in like chronic stressful states is also like associated with digestive problems and IBS and these sorts of things. So if people aren't breathing properly and they're constantly sort of a little bit worked up and a little bit I guess, in this state constantly, then this could be playing an effect as well, and something breathwork could definitely help with.
Yeah, definitely. And they say the belly is the second brain. It has so many. It's the main producer of serotonin. So again, if we're not breathing deeply, we're not nourishing that side of the nervous system as well, and we're not. We're just this word neglect keeps coming up, but we're neglecting that side of ourselves really, and it can be simply resolved by a short, regular breath practice.
Yeah. In terms of toning, do you have any tips for people doing that in the workplace? Like we often hear like stories of like chefs just singing in the kitchen, or people.
It's better than shouting.
Yeah.
Some chefs are renowned for shouting. So yeah, knocking out like a Pavarotti R or an ooh during their shift can definitely change the state as well. It's much more joyful to sing and much more healing to sing than say shout. So yeah, and I think that the kitchen is quite a noisy place anyway, so it's probably one of the professions where you can tone and you can make sound, and it won't be, it's definitely different to maybe being in a boardroom or working in a library or something where you might get a few heads turned. Yeah, chefs should be definitely toning.
Interesting. It's something I definitely need to look into a little bit further. Like on my brief research the other day, like studies are showing like there is an actual like scientific shift in like attention, awareness, and consciousness. So something I'm definitely going to look at a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely.
The final sort of part, I guess, of the different aspects of what you do that we haven't touched on yet would be the positive affirmations. I've read a lot of self-help books. It's one thing I'm yet to sort of incorporate into my life. What's the theory behind adding this on top of breathwork?
I think we have so much negative chit-chat going on in the mind, and I think there's a study, I can't remember who held the study now, but Harvard did a study and found that 46% of our thoughts are negative, And we spend about 52% of our time, I think, elsewhere. So we're here living, but we spend half of our lives thinking, about other things in other places and not being really, really present. And half of those thoughts are negative, and the majority of those thoughts are repetitive. So if you break that down, it's quite, I don't know, it's a little bit depressing really, that we've given, if we're lucky and blessed, we're 80, maybe 70, 80 years, but we've only sort of lived 40 years of those present. 40 of those years, we've spent 20 years of those kind of thinking negatively about ourselves, and most of those it's been on repeat. So by bringing our awareness, so the positive affirmations that we use, trying to shift that chitter chatter, that kind of mental chit chat that goes on in our minds, to a more positive script. And we're all the same, even if people are, I don't really like the phrase, but I'm going to say it, like living their best life, they are definitely not, like, mentally, outwardly they might appear that they're living an amazing life, but internally, are we living, are we being as, brilliant, as kind to ourselves as we can? Are we having those positive thoughts? And even catching those negative thoughts and turning them into a positive script is brilliant. And when I first came to transformational breathing, I was like, oh, these are a bit woo-woo. And, it was definitely more of the last thing I really, really kind of connected with. But just seeing the effect they have on clients, and how sometimes we can say a phrase and they really, really resonate with a part of ourselves that perhaps we don't think about, perhaps we don't really acknowledge that maybe there's, lack of self-worth there, or maybe we say things like it's safe to be heard, and many people, when they've reached sort of 40, 50-year-olds, maybe something happened to them when they were younger where they didn't feel it was safe for them to be heard. And just having someone say that to you can be really, really transformative, because it reaches a part of you that perhaps we haven't consciously thought of before. So it's really working on the subconscious rather than the conscious self. And they're really, really powerful, and I use them lots purely because they really work in great ways. Visualizations as well. I'm big on visualizations, and these are really, they're really powerful. So using the imagination and using the mind for a positive transformation, I think, is just brilliant.
That's a really interesting point as well with the visualization. I was doing a course, I think, about three or 4 weeks back with Tobias, the guy that I interviewed first, and we did like a little visualization meditation. There was this one thing that really stuck with me. I was like visualizing like a future self and like a positive sort of environment for your future self. Then at the end, it was like, all right, so the person that created that future self is already within you. Like every problem that future self took or overcame or went through, I already have everything inside of me to accomplish that.
Yeah.
I found that really cool. But yeah, it's definitely something I need to do a little bit more of. For people like me who are, I guess, a little bit deeper thinkers and a little bit hesitant to jump into these things, because like you, like when you first got into it, like I sort of find them a little bit woo-woo-y. That's a fun word. So how can people get into it? Is it simply a writing down thing, or is it looking in the mirror?
It's the visualizations.
The affirmations and maybe visualizations too.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely more of a listening thing. There are lots of visualization programs you can. There's a great guy, actually, I love him to bits. He's called Max Strom, and he really gave me. He's a very well-renowned yoga teacher, and he really gave me the confidence to use these visualizations, because that's not part of the transformational breath script at all, or part of the program. It's just something I've always loved, to use the mind for this, positive transformation. I've always had great belief that it works. But I went into one of his classes a few years back, actually, and he was doing, he's really, really massive breath work teacher as well, and he was just doing these. He led about an hour of visualizations, and I just thought, God, it's wonderful to see someone of that caliber just relying on visualizations. And I was in tears, people in the class were in tears just by, following his, I mean, he's got a lovely voice and he's got a lovely way from him. And I've just literally downloaded, there's a course you can do, visualization course. So visit Max Strom's site and he's got a course there, which, it's definitely a listening thing. So and it's always great to do, he gave me this great advice, he gave the class great advice actually, that visualization should always be done at the end of class. So he was getting some yoga teachers come up to him and say, oh, I did the visualizations and it didn't really work as well as you were executing them. And he was just like, well, when did you do them? And she went, oh, at the beginning of the class. He was just like, no, you've got to be in this really receptive state. So they often come when I know that the client or the person of the class is in this sort of receptive, calm state. So that he's one of my go-to guys. Yeah.
What do you tend to visualize when you do it? Is it just like a thing or long-term thing or?
No, there's many that I use. So it might not translate very well if I just blurt them out now. And I wouldn't want to do that now because, I think they should be, as I just said, in like a receiving state. So I just think it might not resonate if I just kind of go to a visualization now.
Fair enough. Something that I guess is slightly connected with visualization, something that keeps popping up in these conversations is just finding purpose and how important that is in things like mental health or even just life. So I guess like these positive affirmations, the visualizations, it is just reaffirming that self-identity, which I guess is key to everything and just key to happiness, like whether you're looking at stuff like this or even James Clear's book Atomic Habits. Like he talks about finding that positive identity, and rather than like building towards a goal, like being like I'm going to run a marathon, just be like I'm a runner and I enjoy running, is so much more powerful than just that very short-term thing. But
I think that's a really interesting point. And I was reading recently about egos, and like everyone's got an ego, and we're all in the yoga world and meditation world. There's a lot of spiel and speak about sort of ridding the self of ego and not coming from that sort of ego space. And then I read something else about, and it really fascinated me because I just thought, well, we are all being, and we all have this sense of self. But I think it's much like healthy breathing patterns, healthy eating habits, healthy exercising. To have a healthy ego is the key, really. Like everyone's got an ego, and I don't think we're going to rid ourselves of that ego. And I think it'd be quite strange to rid yourself of that. But to have a healthy sense of self is key. And I think that gets lost as well, or can get mistranslated, and everyone's trying to kind of live from this non-ego state. But I just think it's key not to have a bad ego and an unhealthy ego, but very, very key to have this balance. It's all about balance as well, just having this nice, healthy sense of self, and to have confidence, but not sort of be in that overconfident state, but just to have this balanced ego. And then just on your question of sense of purpose, breathwork for me, and for millions of people that do it, if you break down the word inspiration, it is breath, right? And once we're in this state of an open breath, a connected breath, you're connecting to this, that we breathe in air, but we also breathe in, if you read into the yogic text, this prana, this life force. And it gets so many people, including myself, even after, if I want clarity on something, I'll go and breathe. And then just in this peaceful moment where that mental litter I talked about at the beginning of the chat, when that mind settles, when that chit chat settles, you really get this sense of connection and this inspiration and this purpose, really. And it's just, and it's wonderful. And it's just that it's pure inspiration and it's pure breath. So I think if anyone is looking for inspiration, or if they feel a bit lost and they're not quite sure which way life is taking them, or they're feeling not very confident with this kind of intuition that's telling them to go one way or telling them to go to another way, then the breathwork can really, really just cut through all that mental chitter and give you this kind of this connection to this intuition that's connected to inspiration as well. If that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Definitely. All right, let's finish up by just having a quick chat about your book. What inspired you to write it, and could you tell us more about it?
Um, I never intended to write a book. I was approached to write a book, and I just had my second child. I was just like, okay, this could be interesting. And I breathed on it actually, because I was just like, at the time, I was just like, there's no way I can do this. I'm not in this, maybe mental state to do it because I was very tired. And I was having this negative chit chat thing going on. I was sleep deprived, everything. And then I just was just like, you can do it, and it's really there's a place for this, and I just felt that I was also really busy at the time with other breathing projects as well, and I just thought actually I'd gone from pre-children, literally doing 2 yoga classes a day, breathwork classes, having all this luxurious time and space to breathe, do yoga, running, whatever I want, to literally having no time, but loving the breath work and missing it in a way as well, to go so deeply into the breath work side of things. And so I decided to write a book for kind of everyday life, and full of breath exercises to use on the move, if you like, or to use. I broke it down, so I discovered how many breaths, or I researched how many breaths we take in a lifetime, and then I researched how we spend our lives, and it was surprising that we spend the majority of our lives sleeping, at work, at school, going on short vacations, doing mundane tasks. So the book is actually based around how we spend our lives, or how we spend our breaths, and helping ourselves. That using breath techniques to help us through that. So there's breathworks in there that you can do at the desk. There's breathwork practices that you can do to sleep, help you get to sleep, help with digestion, help with relationships. So there's over 70 breath exercises that you can use and pepper in throughout your life. So it's definitely not a book for someone that wants to, sit in a cave for 40 days, although you could, because there's 72 breath exercises in there. But it's more for the everyday. And it's also, I found a lot of people coming to breathwork have done loads of stuff before, and we're looking for the more spiritual connection side of things, or just looking for more of an esoteric experience. And I just thought, actually, there's so much value in breathwork. I really wanted to reach people that maybe have heard of it, but just not really into it, and didn't really kind of understand it. So it's a real beginner's book, I find, and a helpful book for people that just want to do a little bit of breath work throughout their day, throughout their life, to help them feel a little bit more calmer, better sleep, better digestion. Yeah. So and then it just and then I wrote it in a very short amount of time, and it was released in February, just before lockdown, when everyone's lives turned upside down, and our normal lives were not how the book portrays, as it were. But hopefully we'll get back to normal now, and the book will be helpful to many.
I really like the way you approached the book. I think I find with like a lot of self-help things, or like people giving advice, they're just like do this, but then when you then look at it in like a practical like life situation, like we do spend this amount of time like sleeping, and then at work, like you said, and like often some of these things just aren't actually practical. So like if you break it down and say, all right, so here's something you can do at work, or here's something you can do in bed, or I really like that, and I'm going to make sure I grab myself a copy and
good
get on through it.
Thank you.
Is it mainly Amazon where it's like I've seen
me and Amazon, I mean, it is on Amazon, but you can also get it through independent bookshops, which I like to support. So I think if you go into any independent bookshop, you can order it through them. And Smith's, I think the Telegraph are selling it online. There's lots of places that are selling it. So.
I'll find a link and I'll attach it to this chat when I release it.
Lovely.
Perfect. So if people want to find you, I know you've got a few short exercises on your website. Is that the best place to find you, or through Instagram, or if anyone wants to get in contact?
Yeah, thebreathingroom.co.uk is probably the best one. I know this is for the hospitality industry, but I've also just launched School Breathe as well, where I'm getting breathwork into schools. So if any teachers are out there, primary school teachers, yeah, schoolbreathe.com is my latest venture in the breathwork world. So yeah, we're just this September going into 15 schools around the UK, which is really exciting. So yeah, so there's two streams. I offer one-to-ones at the moment online. There's the book, so that all that information is on the breathingroom.co.uk. School Breathe stuff, schoolbreathe.com.
That's really fascinating. I love that 15 schools have jumped on board. I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. Yeah, no, it's the thing for the next, well, until all kids are breathing well, basically, or until children don't forget to breathe well. Children basically are quite good breathers, but I just want to instill it in them that, yeah, that if they can use their breath for so many situations, and I think the younger we teach this powerful tool, then people are set up for life. And yeah, if we'd all had it when we were 5, 6, then maybe our lives would have taken a different turn, or been less stressful anyway. Would have been able to handle situations in a calmer, more considered, present way.
Yeah. I've seen a bit of like a push for like mindfulness techniques, like being taken into schools as well. So like it's really, really great that the world's sort of starting to open up to these ideas and seeing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Benefit.
Yeah. So I think, I don't know, breathfulness or something will come through. Yeah, no, definitely. It's definitely changing. And just, I started this sort of 12 years ago. So just to see that shift, just the fact that we're talking about breathwork to the hospitality industry, would not have happened 10 years ago. I don't believe anyway, in any serious manner anyway. So yeah, it's just, I think the scientific research, I think there's more research that needs to be done, definitely, just to, because there's so much to research about breathwork. But yeah, I think it's amazing that its value is being seen, definitely, and being experienced most of all. We can chat about it all day, but to actually do it is the key, really.
Yeah. You've inspired one final question, and then I will let you go. You mentioned that children typically breathe quite well,
Mm-hmm.
and as adults and being a bit stressed, you mentioned earlier that sometimes we don't breathe so well. Where does it go wrong?
Well, in my humble opinion, I believe it is at school. I think I read this quite lovely quote, but the other day, saying that we stop learning the day we go to school, and there's something so true in that. And if you think about, if you see children up until the age of 5, before school, they're running around, they're playing, they're very active, and when they sit down, they squat down, and their body movements are very intuitive. And the minute they get to school, they're really being told to sit down for 5 hours maybe of the day, very restricted playtime. They're taught to learn English, maths, and just, well, in some schools anyway, that is the curriculum. And we're obviously focusing on the mind at that age, which is great. Learning is fantastic, but it's the way in which we learn, I don't think, is that healthy. And just the invention of the chair, I think, is in schools anyway, has changed our posture, changed the way, and if we're changing our posture, if we're told to sit still for that amount of time, it's very, very unhealthy for the respiratory system. And I found a lot of children, I worked in a school in Hackney, East London, the beginning of this year, and yet the amount of children that couldn't get into squat position, like they had very, very stiff hips, the amount of children that were upper chest breathers, we're talking about like 7, 8-year-olds, they've been at school for a couple of years, was astounding. Obviously that's not all school. Obviously some children don't get the opportunity to play, or parents are very busy, so that sort of active side that we're meant to have is not, many kids go from the bed to telly to school, back to telly to bed. So yeah, but I do believe school's not the healthiest way to learn, and it's not definitely not the healthiest way to educate human beings on being human. But that's just my 2 pennies worth.
I like it.
But sitting down for any long length of time, especially at a desk, when the rib cage is hunched over, the diaphragm's kind of collapsed, is not great. Yeah, then we start losing our natural ability to breathe fully. Yeah. So this is why I'm on a bit of a mission to make sure that doesn't happen, or people become aware of when they're not breathing properly.
So taking things a little bit more back to the basics and just moving like we should as human beings.
Yeah, definitely. And we're born to move. If you break ourselves down into trillions of moving cells, we're born to move the whole time. Yeah, we can rest and have constructive rest, but the amount of sitting that we do is astounding, really. Too much.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's get off Instagram and go and exercise.
Let's go do that. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming back for round.
Yes, and apologies for the little visitor we had the other day.
That's no problem.
Okay. All right, Matt. Thank you.
Thank you so much.